My name's Ole Kanestrom. I'm a bowmaker. I live in Port Townsend. It's considered the Mirecourt of bow making in the Western Hemisphere. There are many, well, not many, but there are several internationally renowned bow makers that live there. So it's become known as the center of the bow making universe for the United States. And I've been making bows there for 17 years. I craft violin bows, viola bows, and cello bows exclusively. I was drawn to bow making because I was learning how to play the violin in Baja, and to make a long story bearable, I met a fellow down there named Chuck Waddington, and he fixed my truck, which was broken. Its name was Chuck the truck. Chuck Waddington fixed Chuck the truck. And he saw there was a fiddle case in the back of my truck, and he says, "Oh, my nephew, Chuck, makes violin bows, and he's internationally renowned, and he lives in Port Townsend." And I said, "Well, I live in Port Townsend." And so it was, a year later, he gave me his phone number and address, and it was about a year later I looked him up, and we became fast friends, Charles Espy. And I watched him work over the course of a few years, and then asked him to teach me how to make the bows. So he was my first teacher in the bow making, and that's how I came to become a bow maker. It was very intuitive for me. I had crafting ability before being a bow maker. I drew a lot. I wouldn't call myself a fine artist as far as drawing but painting, but I did quite a lot of that. And I also did carving just for fun. And so seeing Charles work with bows was something that just kind of rang in my soul. It was what I needed to do. Once I began with Charles studying, it was very intense. He's a very demanding instructor, and he's raised quite a lot of internationally renowned bow makers. He just has a way of doing that, and I feel so grateful to have been able to study with him. But to continue on, it requires that steady focus of studying, and I've had an opportunity to work with other great bow makers, and it just takes constant attention of working with the medium in order to understand it. The time required to craft a bow is dependent upon the material. The wood itself is a living, it's a tree, and it's a living material. It breathes, it expands, it contracts. It has a resiliency all its own, and each stick is a complete individual. So sometimes it can take quite a lot of time to extract a bow out of a piece of wood, because it has a life of its own. Other times it's very easy. So to pin an hour like it takes 40 hours to make a bow is not really true, because you have to work with the stick, and sometimes it can be twice that long. There's really no time limit you can put on it in order to make a bow sing. Historically significant bows are important to modern bow makers, contemporary bow makers, in that bow making is a language, and it all springs from the beginning of the bow making history, which starts with Francois Torch, a modern bow, and then from there. So the really golden period of bow making was the 1800s, and we've taken, as contemporary bow makers, we've learned from bow maker after bow maker after bow maker, and I think we're taking it to new places. It still, resonates in that period of French history that really created the modern bow, but So to say that I make something off a model of a French maker, that's not entirely true, because it is my own. As a contemporary maker, you want to express what is yourself, and and so I don't actually go by a model of a maker, but it certainly does have its roots in the history of French making. The restoration of historic bows is quite a bit of responsibility, in that you want to keep the character of the work intact. And so any work that you do on a historic bow has to preserve the hand of the maker. Not everyone is capable of restoring, or should be entrusted to restore a historically significant bow, because it requires understanding how the maker worked, the tracks of the tools, just the whole signature of the maker. And so to have someone that doesn't fully understand that work on a bow like that is potentially going to destroy the character and the value of the bow. So it's very important that anyone that works on a bow of historical significance has a full knowledge of the maker that he's working with. So you're working kind of side by side with the original maker. That's really a cool thing. It requires incredible materials, the best available, but beyond that, it takes someone with a sensitive touch, and being able to feel the strength, the weaknesses, the resonance in the wood, and then interpret that to make a bow that plays well. And that's what really delights me, is that I'm able to do that, to bring out something special in a piece of wood that grows in a forest. It's magic. I use two woods to craft my bows. Pernambuco, which is the stick, and it was standardized again by Francois Tourt, the brilliant French maker, at the turn of the 1800s, and hasn't changed since. It's the magic wood, it's the music wood. It has every property that is needed for a bow, and there's nothing else that can really replace it. There have been a lot of experimenting with other woods that come close, but nothing really does. That's the stuff. And what makes it special is its strength, its resilience, its resonance. And so that's it. And the other part is the frog, which holds the hair on the bow at where the hand is, close to the hand, and that's ebony. And other kinds of woods have been used and are being used for that, but ebony traditionally is the choice for the frog. Bowmakers today are kind of at a crossroads because of the environmental issues with the materials. And in order to be a bowmaker today, you pretty much have to have a lifetime stock of all the materials. It's hard to say what will happen in the future with government regulations and CITES as far as these materials go. But in order to be a bowmaker today, you really have to have everything that you need in place for the rest of your life as a bowmaker. When I work with a piece of wood, it's not always obvious if it's going to make a bow. I have a lot of reject sticks that are near completion, but it reveals itself as you work with it. At first you pick a stick that you think is going to be good. It has the right density, has a nice ring to it, a strength, resilience. You think this is it, and then as you work into it and camber it and graduate it, nuances start coming out in it, and it begins to have a life of its own. And at some point, you might discover that it just isn't going to cut it, so you have to set it aside. Other times, you can take a stick that feels like, oh, it's going to make an okay bow, but as you work into the stick, and get farther along, it just becomes livelier and livelier. It just starts having a life to it, and that's really magic when that happens. Bows are the extension of the hand. The violin is the soul, the sound, the soul of the player, you know, the sound that comes out. But the bow is the connection to the instrument from the soul of the player. And there are things about the wood that we just don't know. I intuit what will be a good bow, and I make the bow to the best of my abilities for that. But beyond that, there's this mystical quality about wood that I don't think anyone really understands or knows. It's a relationship between the violin, the player, and the bow, and each relationship is entirely unique. You can take one bow and give it to another player on an instrument and it doesn't work. So there's some magic that happens. I keep using that word magic. There's some quality in the wood that interacts with the player and the instrument to create this balance of playability and sound. I don't think any maker can really quantify or qualify what that is. It's just something that we feel and the musician feels, and certainly the instrument reacts to that also. Well, people have tried to study the physics of the wood, the bows, and certainly that has a lot of value. I'm interested in it. I think everyone that's in the trade is interested in the physical qualities of the wood, the physics of it. But it comes down to bow making now as a craft, making them by hand one at a time from an individual stick requires a sensitivity that only comes through experience. And until somebody figures out a different way of doing it, it's really up to an experienced artist to be able to, or craftsman to be able to bring out the qualities in the bow and make it play. You can have one stick and turn it into any number of kinds of playing bow, how it sounds, how it plays. So it really does take a connection with the wood as you're making it to bring it into playability and something that a musician will enjoy.